Hello and welcome to Overcome, a mental health podcast. I'm very excited for all of you to be listening today, and especially excited for today's guest. Uh, I'd like to welcome Kurt Bush to the show. Kurt is the co founder of Brimstone Coaching Group, and today he's going to speak to us on imposter syndrome. And I'm just going to hand the time over to him.
Yeah, thanks, Travis. Thanks for having me. We at the Brimstone Coaching Group we certainly don't exclusively work with people that are wrestling with imposter syndrome, but I think what I and my coaching partner would say is that almost every human has some form of imposter syndrome, or maybe you could call it self doubt. That this is just a pretty human experience. um, and I think I start by saying that because I think I want to give listeners permission to name that they feel that. I have one client who asked me just a couple weeks ago. He said he got real quiet and he leaned in. It was a Zoom call. He leaned in. He said, "Hey, I just want to ask you a question. How many people feel like I feel like I don't belong? How many people feel like they have self doubt or like they don't belong in the role they're in?" And I looked at him. I said, everyone. I mean, this is a near unanimous experience for people that we interact with, for sure.
Yeah, I know I've suffered from it, and I like the terminology used as self doubt. Um, do you feel like there's like one profession over another, like a group of people that like felt more than others might?
That's a great question. I think 5 years ago I would have said this is an exclusively white collar sort of um, feeling or experience. I actually don't believe that. I think now I feel more and more clear that one way or another, any profession, any socioeconomic rank, any blue collar, white collar. I think somewhere in our lives, it's again almost unanimous that we feel like we are ill equipped or unprepared. um, I think it manifests itself most obviously in our work, right? I think we can all think of professions where this could come into play. Maybe someone in the public eye or someone who's leading an organization, but I think self doubt creeps in with things like parenting or being in relationships. I think self doubt is also a part of this, like maybe self-sabotage that we do sometimes when we're in a relationship with somebody that we really don't want to screw up, but we end up kind of self-sabotaging. I don't think I wonder if that actually kind of boils all back to this feeling of being an imposter. And again, I think it's broader to say that we have these doubts that we're worthy of something or that we belong in something. I think that all kind of stems from the same place.
Yeah, I can agree there. And have you ever experienced any like self doubt or imposter syndrome yourself?
Yeah. Yes. I think the phrase I've used is near crippling. Um, I'll share a little bit and I'll let you kind of ask what you want to ask. But I went back to get my master's degree in my mid 30s. Um, I I am not I am not an academic by any stretch. And I was not an academic by any stretch when I went back to get a master's degree. Um, to the point where I just didn't know what I was doing. I was in a distance learning course, writing papers that I felt like I had no business writing, papers that I didn't know what I was doing. I see cohort mates that are, nearly half my age, and I just felt out of place. I remember so vividly the feeling that I would submit a paper and I would hit submit on the online submission page, and I remember fearing that this paper, whatever this paper was, that this paper or this assignment was going to be the one that the professors found out, or this was going to be the one where the institution said, you know what, after all, you don't belong. After all, you know what, you're not good enough. I feared that my fears were going to be true and that they were going to find out. Um, I didn't have any of this language around imposter syndrome at the time, right? I didn't have any of this self doubt language at the time. I was just exhausted, um, exhausted. I mean, imposter syndrome, self doubt, feeling like we don't belong, or feeling like we're not worthy, or feeling like we have to, um, compensate for not belonging. That is exhausting. And it takes away from all the things we're doing, right? Right. That took away from my learning. That took away from the quality of my work for the classes that I was in. And what's true is that when that program ended, when I graduated, imposter syndrome didn't go away. We have a phrase that we say everywhere we go, there we are. And sure enough, that self doubt, that imposter syndrome followed me into my work. Um, I think I say it followed me because I think I was becoming more aware. I think I was becoming aware that this was becoming a problem that was not sustainable for my life. It was not leading to the results in my life that I wanted in terms of thriving, in terms of well being. It was actually taking away from those things. It was messing with my sleep. It was messing with the way I interacted with people. And long story short, I found myself in a workplace where I would need to sit around a table and collaborate with other leaders that I looked up to. These were people that I respected. I actually really loved them. These were colleagues that I cared a lot about. I live in a small town that has a little college in it, so I'm around the table with professors and academic types. And for the first few months of this job, I would sit at this table and I would just fear being found out as an imposter. I would sit there and I would have something to say, and the only thing I could do was sit there and be quiet because I would fear every time I'd open my mouth that would be the thing, and they would say, "Gosh, Kurt, you don't actually belong at this table. Why don't you actually just leave?" And it's crippling, right? It's near crippling. Um, and I think I'll stop here in a second, but
You're good.
I think what's been true is I figured out how to manage that. I figured out what I needed to sit at that table and contribute. Right. I leaned into some practices that showed me that these people actually care for me, that they actually want me at the table, that I actually contribute to the table. I think oftentimes what's true is each of us individually, me and you and the listener, we contribute to things uniquely, right? I contributed in ways that people next to me at the table couldn't. We like to say in our coaching practice that when we allow imposter syndrome and self doubt to keep us silent, that we actually are robbing the world of our truest selves. So I figured out that wasn't true. That there was nothing to be found out for. That there was no threat. But what was true is within the last year, my coaching partner and we've started a coaching practice, and starting a small business has stirred up a new level of imposter syndrome and self doubt that has required a whole new set of practices because it's a different set of triggers. It's a different reality that stirs up the self doubt, stirs up the imposter syndrome in ways that previous experiences have not.
Yeah, and I can actually point out times where I felt that imposter syndrome. I think a lot of it is pretty related to what you said about sitting in a group of people. Um, I've been a project manager for the last like 6, 7 years of my career, and so I'm sitting with stakeholders and executives and stuff. And there's moments where I was like, "Oh, I don't dare to say anything because I don't think what I have to say is valuable."
Yeah,
And so,
yeah,
like, part of me now is just barely getting over this. And another
yeah,
thing too is like even starting this podcast, it took me a long time to do because I was like, I had the fear that nobody was going to listen or
Yeah.
even care what I had to say.
Yeah. Yeah. Can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
Sorry, I do this. My friends laugh at me because I always ask if I can ask a question before I
No,
actually
you're
do it.
dead.
You can always say no. Um, what was the impact of you? What is the impact of you? Like when you're sitting as a project manager with stakeholders, what's the impact on you as a human being to sit there and feel this self doubt?
But I don't know. It's just to me, it's like an overwhelming feeling. Like it's like a feeling that doesn't end. Like and it just makes me more anxious to feel the self doubt, and it kind of just makes me shut down personally.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Thanks for saying that. I mean, I think that super illustrates this idea that we believe deeply that these things rob the world of our truest selves. And I think we can say that robs our organizations of what they ask of us, but I think on a broader scale, I
Yeah,
think the world needs our voices and our truest
yeah,
selves.
exactly. In my example, like if I shut down completely in a stakeholder, they're not going to learn the things that they need to learn to like as far as like timelines or whatever it is that's going on to
Yeah,
be able to know where the project is exactly.
yeah, yeah, for sure.
So when somebody is experiencing this self-doubt, like how do you like what steps do they need to take to start like pushing themselves out of it?
Yeah. First, let me say it's hard work. We believe that transformation and literally setting aside imposter syndrome or self doubt. I mean, that requires transformation. This is long, slow work. But we hold really closely this thing that we call the transformational equation. We say E plus R equals T. E is encounter, R is reflection, and this is where we start everyone. We invite everyone to take those encounters we have, and we have hundreds of encounters every day with people, with circumstances that cause us to feel things, that cause us to react to things. In your example, what we would say is, if a client of mine is sitting around a boardroom table and feels like they're withdrawing into themselves and not contributing, we would say that's the encounter, and I would invite them to reflect on what happened, what did you feel, what did you do. A question that we think is really helpful is what's the threat. What would happen if the worst case scenario happened. Um, and then maybe the most important question is how would you prefer to be. Um, and that all sounds really easy, but I believe actually most of these self-doubt experiences are connected to something in our past. um, we our bodies, our nervous systems are tremendously good at keeping ourselves safe. um, and when we ask the question, what is the threat? What we're really asking is, what's the threat today that is felt today in the moment? And where does it come from? Because it probably comes from somewhere long in the past. Um, we have things that we like to call protective promises. We help our clients identify protective promises. These are promises that we make to our first formation selves to keep ourselves safe. So, third grade Kurt, for example, third grade Kurt didn't know he was doing this, but third grade Kurt made a protective promise to never, ever allow myself to look dumb in front of people. Right. That was something I learned in third grade, that if I look dumb in front of people, bad things will happen, or negative feelings or negative experiences will happen. So my nervous system knows if there's a chance that I'm going to look dumb, that I need to protect against that. So when we say what's the threat, that's really what we mean is what is our nervous system responding to? And can we be honest today if that threat is the same today as it was yesterday or in previous years? Because often it's not. Sometimes it is, but often it's not. Right? Third grade Kurt doesn't need to show up in these boardrooms. adult Kurt, present day Kurt needs to show up, because the danger for third grade Kurt is not present today. So I think that's where we start. We believe that reflection is probably the closest thing to a secret sauce, in terms of transformation that we can give. It's still long, hard work, but we would begin with this idea of reflecting on these encounters, and just being really intentional about that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And since you're into coaching, like, would you say like to kind of overcome some of the problems you had with whether it be imposter syndrome or something else? Did you have to have a mentor or coach yourself to get over this stuff?
Yeah, absolutely. I still have a coach. I believe pretty firmly. One of the values I hold is that if a leader, and I use the term leader broadly, I think everybody leads something. If a leader is going to lead, then we need to invest in ourselves, right? If I don't have a coach or a mentor or counselor, I'm probably unfit then to lead someone else. Yes, I worked through all of this with my own coach, and I think the value of this is, my coach is outside of my system, right? My coach doesn't know anybody sitting around that table with me when I felt like an imposter. My coach doesn't know what my job entails in all the details. And my coach is not my friend. Now, are we are we close? Like, do we have a positive relationship? Yes. But the difference between a coach and a friend, if I went to a friend and I said, I feel like such an imposter, my friend is going to say, Kurt, you're not an imposter. You're awesome. But my coach can say, can disconnect from me, disconnect from my system, and hold up a mirror for me to look at with his questions. Right. He was able to ask me questions like, what's the threat? um, I can't ask that on my own, or if I do, I can give the cliche answer, the short answer, and say, "There, I answered that, and I'm going to move on." My coach doesn't let me do that. My coach keeps going and says, "Okay, well, is that true? Okay, say more about that." So, yes, I am a firm believer. I mean, I'm biased. I run a coaching practice, um, but I think absolutely someone from outside of our systems are uniquely equipped to help us process these things real time.
Yeah, it's like you said, the relationship there is just different. Like
Yeah,
but you need it to be. Like you
yeah,
need somebody that's gonna like turn around and push you and to better
yeah,
yourself.
yeah.
Or else, like, what's the purpose, really?
Yeah, I had a, I had a, one of my coaches a long time ago. I would call him occasionally. I had a little different relationship with this coach, but I would call him, and oftentimes I would start by complaining about. And we're talking 10 years. Let me just say that this is 10 years ago. I would call him, and I would start with some form of like, I got to tell you about these people that I'm leading. I got to tell you about what these people did. And like a good coach, he would listen to me. He would let me talk. And then the very first question he would ask me was, okay, Kurt, what part are you playing in this situation? And my immediate response was always like, shut up. I just told you everybody else sucks. And he wouldn't let me off, right? Because what's true is we all play a part in our systems. And that's the beauty of a coach. My friends would have listened to me talk about this system I was in, and they would have said, yeah, you're right. Yeah, those people should be different. But my coach wouldn't let me get away with it. He'd say, okay, what part do you play in this? So yeah, I think you're right. It's just a super valuable type of relationship.
Nice. Uh, how does what's the word I'm looking for? How does does somebody like balance self doubt with like healthy self improvement? Like, how do you
Yeah,
balance the two together?
yeah, that's a great question. I think of this, just I'm gonna oversimplify it and then I'll expand a little bit. But I
Okay.
think of this as a difference between criticism and assessment. Right? I can criticize myself, and that leads to what we would call a disempowering solution. Meaning, if I criticize myself, that's often going to be indicated by leading me to a solution that doesn't lead me to growth, that leads me to probably withdrawing or probably feeling shame. Right? Shame is the feeling that we're bad. Right? Guilt is we did something bad. Shame is we're bad. So if I'm criticizing myself and it's leading me to a response that either causes me to withdraw or causes me to double down on my complaining or causes me to say, you know what, I don't really have anything to learn here, I'm just going to do the same thing next time. I would say that is self-doubt. I think self-development is different. I think when we assess ourselves, when we reflect, right, this is the E plus R, when we reflect, I think if we come to a place where we make an empowered meaning of this, meaning that it leads us to take a step towards improvement or step towards a different result or a different behavior next time, I think that's the key. If my response leads me towards something different, then I know that I'm actually assessing. And some assessments are like, I did something that I didn't want to do. um I'll give you an example. um my partner and we work with a marketing firm because we don't have any idea what we're doing with marketing. And they once a week almost send us an email with tasks to do. And I would say 50% of that email we have to ask for clarity because we are not marketing people, we're coaches. uh, a few weeks ago they sent an email and 100% of it I needed clarity on because I didn't have any idea what they were talking about. So my old patterns of behavior that said don't look dumb, out of habit, I reached up and I closed my laptop because I didn't want to address it. Right. now I could have done one of two things. I could have said, you know what, that's their fault, they sent me this stupid email, I don't know what I'm doing, they should have sent something that I understood. That would be that would be disempowering, right? That's not leading me into a direction of transformation. But what I was able to do was, 15 minutes later, after I like cooled down a little bit, I was able to say that wasn't what I wanted to do. Right? I was able to say that wasn't the response I wanted to have. So I think you're right that some personal assessment, some personal development actually might look negative, where we do something wrong or we do something that we don't like. But I think it's what we do with it that makes the difference. Um, we would call this meaning making. I don't. Have you ever heard the phrase meaning making?
I don't think I have.
So you and I are meaning making machines. Meaning every experience we have, we assign a meaning out of it. Um, Travis, if I sent you a text message, uh, later tonight, and I said, "Hey, I'm going to move to a new house this Saturday. Can you help me move?" And you respond back, "No." That's it. Just two letters. No. I have the opportunity to make meaning out of that. I can make the meaning that says, Travis is really mad at me. I can make the meaning that Travis doesn't like me. I can make the meaning that Travis is busy. I can make the meaning that your ankle is hurt. Like, I can make a million meanings. One of them's true. Um, so what meaning we make out of these things really, I think, dictates the difference between self doubt and self improvement. If we make a negative meaning out of it, it's going to go down the self doubt road. But if we're able to make a meaning out of it that isn't connected to shame or isn't connected to, belittling ourselves or talking negative about ourselves, then I think we can walk down that self improvement road.
Awesome. I love it. I love it. I love the analogy to like texting and asking to move. And it's like, just made me think that I need to stop doing some of this stuff. Like because, I work mostly remote. And sometimes when people like reach out and message me, it's like, okay, well, I don't know how to take that comment.
Yeah.
It's like, I can't
Yeah.
read, like,
Yeah.
if I'm in a room with somebody, I can see their posture and how they're reacting. But I can't, when I just read some text, it's like, I don't know what they mean by that. Like,
Yeah.
was it supposed to be negative? Was it? just neutral.
Yep. Yep. Yeah. Remote working. Yeah. Electronic communication is just rife with meaning making. Absolutely.
So you said that you're coaching business. Obviously, it deals with more than imposter syndrome. What other types of things do you guys coach for?
Yeah. We deal a lot. We deal a lot with people that are dealing with a loud inner critic, which is similar to self doubt. But there's a nuanced difference, right? Inner critic is of a part inside of us that's telling us that we're not good enough, right? It's subtle, but we find in clients the roots and the origins of them are a little different. Um, so we deal a lot with inner critic things and self doubt. Those are the two major ones. We do work with a lot of clients who find themselves in times of transition, whether that's transition from college to career, or you know no kids to kids, losing one job into another job. Those times of transition tend to be times where we start to notice, hey, this thing got taken away from my life. Now I'm starting to feel things and notice things about me that I didn't before, or I'm starting to realize maybe I don't know myself as well as I used to. um, I think that the core of our work with all of these clients, no matter what the presenting issue is, the core of the work is really about self discovery. Um, Again, that reflection is so close to a secret sauce, in the sense that it really is about discovering who we are. And once we see the things that we do, or the responses we have, once we see them, now we have agency to either continue them or to change them. So no matter what the presenting issue is, we really are rooted in the idea of self discovery and increasing self awareness.
And sometimes I feel like that it's through some of our hardest challenges in life where we actually have the most self discovery.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We would say, I mean, I think we see that in our clients. I mean, I certainly see that in my own life. Um, I think I think what's true, Travis, is most of us, myself included, sometimes, right? Most of us kind of just white knuckle our way through lives because we're all busy and we're all just trying to survive on some level. And what happens is when we're just trying to survive, like we don't have time to notice these things about us. But in those times of difficulty, or those seasons of maybe even crisis or catastrophe, or abrupt change that we didn't expect, um, now now we're kind of presented with a time to notice things that we don't have a choice whether we get to notice them or not. They're happening. um, there's an analogy that I like that sort of gets at this idea that when we try to survive through life, that at some point those things that we're not seeing or we're ignoring are going to come out. If you've ever tried to hold a beach ball underwater, like in a pool, it's hard to do. It's not hard to do, but it wants to like
Yeah, wants to pop
come out
up
of the
and yeah,
water. um, we think ignoring those parts of us that at some point then kind of come out are like that beach ball. We can try really hard to hold that underwater, but the further we push it down, the harder it gets to hold it, and that beach ball is always coming up. There is no keeping that beach ball down all the time. So I think you're right. I think sometimes those seasons of difficulty are the beach ball coming out, and maybe the beach ball coming out is actually just what we need. And that's not to say it's not hard. I maybe want to clarify, like, the beach ball coming out is really hard. It's hard on us. It's usually hard on people around us. But once the beach ball's out, maybe the gift in the hard is to say, now we get to keep the beach ball out from under the water, if you will.
yeah. I love it. I love all the analogies and everything. I'm eating this up. Is there like any like story you can share like in regards to a client of where you saw them come in and just full of self-doubt and just totally frustrated, and just to turn around and see their success and see them move beyond it?
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, let me think of. Yeah, so I have a client who leads a group of people in a nonprofit organization, um, and I think what I feel comfortable saying is that that the beginning of our work together, this client would have said that they were extremely confident, no self doubt. And what I got to see as self awareness and self discovery happened is that there was a high level of confidence that moved into like this. Oh my gosh, I I maybe am not as confident as I think I am because maybe I'm measuring confidence in ways that are not maybe how I want to measure confidence, or measuring leadership in ways that maybe leadership isn't actually measured by. I think what I would say is I've gotten to see this person go from like, man, I'm this amazing leader to, oh wow, now I'm just not sure. Now this person is actually leading this group of nonprofit leaders in a way that now those leaders are doing their own work. Now those leaders are actually beginning to use the work that the leader has done in their group amongst themselves. Now that's not to say that self doubt's gone. Um, I might even say that I'm not sure if self doubt is ever going to go away. I think as long as we're human, we'll always have it come up. I might say that the goal is not to get rid of self doubt. The goal is to know how to address it when it does show up. Right? Maybe it's a fool's errand to try to get rid of it, but we can actually do the work to build practices to address it. So I've seen this person begin to thrive, and I think what I love about this story is that his team is thriving too. It goes beyond. I think this is why we do the coaching work, is that it's great for my life, it's great for our clients' lives, but it really is how the world changes. It really is how families change. It really is how teams change. It really is how transformation happens.
Yeah, yeah, I love transformation stories, and it's just a like I'm sure it brings you and your partner a lot of joy to like just see people change. Just kind of that realization, like, oh, I can do this. But I also want to touch base on what you said, how the self doubt doesn't go away. It just matters how we deal with it. I think that's true for pretty much any mental health issue that somebody's gone through. I think, like, I suffer from bad anxiety, and it's like, no, it's not going away. It's going to be here tomorrow. It's just me recognizing it in the moment and doing something to get beyond that and um, just overcome it. In all
Yeah.
honesty,
Yeah. What can I ask you another question?
yeah, of course.
What difference does it make for you, for you to be able to say, or to move from I have to get rid of this period to okay, this might show up again tomorrow, but I know how to deal with it. Like what difference does it make? Why is that important to you?
Because to me, like, if I know I'm not getting rid of it, I'm gonna take better steps to, or I shouldn't say better. I should say the correct steps to learn how to cope with it. Like, I'm gonna learn more strategies, um, to if whether it's taking breaths or counting out loud, whatever it is. 'Cause there's tons of them. But whereas if I was just getting rid of it, like, it's like I'm not gonna take some of these into mind or practice. I'm like, well, it just shouldn't be here anymore. And I think that's one thing that society teaches us is like we shouldn't have to live with self doubt. We shouldn't have to live with anything like this. But back to what your statement is, like, it's not true. We're going to. We're human.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I don't think I could say it better. I mean, I think Travis, if you were coaching me and you told me tonight, Kurt, you're never going to feel self doubt again if you do these 5 steps. Well, then the minute I feel it, I'm going to think I failed, right? I'm going to think, what's wrong with me? And I think that's so important. I think what you said is so important, that feeling these things and experience these things it's not failure, right? It's not. that we're not good enough, that we're not smart enough, that we're not resilient enough. It just is. And I think coming to terms with them just being present, I think you're right, just allows us to get into action more effectively.
Yeah, totally agree. Do you What do you think society in general could do better with people struggling with, like, I'm just going to make it more broad and say anything like dealing with mental health?
Yeah, I mean, I think we just need to keep talking about it. I mean, this client that asked me about other people feeling self doubt, right? I mean, he was asking me this, almost feeling ashamed to ask, and like I just wanted to say to him, like, this is human. Every one of us has something like this that we feel like we have a hard time shaking, or we have a hard time building strategies for. I think just normalizing these things through conversations like this, I long for the day, Travis, when people like us in professions like ours can say out loud, "Hey, you know what? Right now, I'm just feeling a little stirred up. Right now, I'm just feeling a little bit like there's a threat to be embarrassed." I mean, imagine. Let me give you an example. This company, or this nonprofit that I worked for, with this boardroom with all these professionals, the story that I shared with you, um, the overall leader of this organization believed in this work wholeheartedly, and created a culture for this work, to the point where, multiple times throughout my time at this organization, people would say that. People would say in the middle of a meeting, "Hey, you know what? I'm just going to take a minute because I think I'm going to respond in a way that I don't prefer. So I'm just going to take a minute and let you all talk." I mean, that is so refreshing, Travis. I mean, immediately that disarms the entire room. Um,
And
I think that I think my lament, my sadness, is that there's still so many corners of corporate America that see that as weakness. Um, I just don't think it is. I think those are the best leaders. I think these are the leaders of the future. I think these are the most influential leaders and the most effective leaders for sure. So I think I really do think normalizing it through conversations like this. Um, I think it's slow, but I think this is how it's done.
yeah, I totally agree. And I think uh, one person like shares their story and it kind of is like a just an effect, like a try. I don't even know the
Yeah,
right word to use.
yeah,
Like if it's going to get more people to open up. But what you said about going back to that leader, I think it actually shows a lot of character to be able to stand up and say, you know what, I need a minute. I actually have to do that sometimes. Like for some reason, when I tell my kids it's bedtime, it gets really chaotic at my house. And being kind of anxiety driven, I'm just like, this is too much because I see things as going a certain way, and when they don't go that way, I'm like,
yeah,
this is nonsense. This is crap. Like it needs to go the way I want it to. So I found that myself, like saying to my wife, like, I need to step out of the room for a minute. And honestly, all I need is 30 seconds. And I can reset myself in that amount of time and go back into the room with my kids and be just fine and finish the bedtime routine.
yeah, yeah. Way to go! Way to go!
Yeah, like learning to do stuff like that, it beats the other side of the outcome. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, do you, what's the word I'm looking for now? So, how do you think we foster an environment that reduces these feelings of like self doubt and uh, imposter syndrome?
Yeah. So I mentioned protective promises earlier, that I think these protective promises drive behaviors, right? So third grade Kurt uh, has these negative experiences that tell me looking dumb is going to lead to negative responses, or negative consequences. So I would say, to move forward, we have to replace those. I have to replace that promise, the promises that says I will never look dumb. I have to replace that with something else. Um, I think again, our nervous systems know how to do. My nervous system knows how to keep me safe, and it's going to just keep doing that until number one, I can tell my nervous system, hey, you know what? Why don't you take a break? I'm a huge fan of self talk. I think there is something to self talk that allows our nervous system to know that this is okay, that I'm safe. But I think replacing the story that says if I look dumb, that people are going to withdraw from me. That was the fear. If I look dumb here, people are going to withdraw from me. I've replaced that with I belong at this table, all right, or I am at the place that I'm at. I am present here on purpose for a reason. That counteracts this fear of looking dumb, right? Um, I have another promise that counteracts it that says that I say what's so for me. I don't know if you know the Enneagram at all. Are you familiar with the Enneagram?
Mm,
Okay,
semi, but not like
yeah,
enough to really speak on it.
it's okay. It's okay. I'm a harmonizing people pleaser. So the idea that I might be able to say what's so for me is really hard. When I can be aware that my self doubt is connected to these things in my past, now I know what I can begin to replace that with. I can tell myself a different story. Again, this is not overnight, right? This is very hard work. And I think to your point, like you said, sometimes you have to step out of the room for 30 seconds. There's a lot of that work that when I would sit around this table, that I'd have to literally like take a deep breath and tell myself, and maybe even check out a little bit, just to say, I'm safe. I belong here. I'm here on purpose. And how I want to be is I'm going to say what's so for me. So I really do think I'm making it sound way easier than it is. It's not, but I think to behave our way into a new posture, we need to replace those old stories and those old threats with truth. Um, and that's not I always want to be clear. This isn't sort of I'm not a sort of name it, claim it person. I think it takes hard work to do this. I think it takes more than just saying we want to. Um, but I think the idea that this thing drove my behavior, this old thing, but now this thing is going to drive my behavior. I think that's maybe the most effective thing that I can think of.
Yeah, and you said something uh, just barely that made me think of um, this as like I think it kind of relates to what you just said. It's a lot of hard work. It's not overnight. And for me, like I've had to learn to subconsciously like think in that moment within a split second of like, okay, how am I going to react to this? Is it going to be positive or negative?
Yeah,
And it's
yeah,
like it's some all this stuff you have to train yourself. You have to
yeah,
like rewire your brain to make it a
yeah.
habit.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, think about these things. Like some of these behaviors we've been doing for decades, and they're just automatic. They're just driving the bus right now of our responses. So I think you're right. I mean, retrain. I don't think that's an exaggeration. I think literally retraining our brain. I mean, I think that's what it takes, and I think that's why it takes so long, right? Like this is not a quick process.
And you said that most of like some our self doubt comes from like something in the past. Have you seen kind of a repeat type thing in your practice that's like it's kind of like a similar story to some of these people, or is it kind of all different? And
Yeah, that's a good question. You know, Yeah, yeah, that's a good question. I'm not sure I know how to answer that. Um, I feel really clear that most of these things in our past happen in that first formation time, that like elementary to high school. Um, I think many of our clients have a similar experience in the sense that that they're protecting from something happening or protecting from a negative feeling. I think it's much less common. It happens, but I think it's much less common that someone builds these habits around like getting attention or getting affection. I think it happens, but I think more often than not, the commonality is that we're protecting from a negative consequence, if that makes sense. Maybe that's the commonality that I would say we see the most.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like, and you answered that well. So,
Thanks.
uh, what? So I just have a few more things here. What advice would you give anybody that's struggling from like any mental health issue?
I think first, I just want to say, be kind to yourself. Um, I I'm a huge fan of self compassion. Uh, be kind to yourself. Name what you need, and get it right. If that's a good counselor or therapist, if that's time away, if that's rest, be kind to yourself, and know that it's okay to name what you need. Um, I think again, I just keep going back to this thing, Travis. I don't know. I have a heart that says you're not alone. Um, I think everybody's experience is different, but I think every one of us has something that we feel resigned about changing, or we feel cynical about changing, or we feel like we can't change as it pertains to emotional or mental health. So I think I just want to say, be kind to yourself, and you're not alone.
I totally agree with all of that. And stop, stop being your own worst enemy.
Yeah, yeah,
I can speak to that from experience, but that'd be a whole different. I could go off on a tangent, so
yeah.
I won't do that. Is there anything that you'd like to uh, speak about that we have not touched base on?
No, I mean, I could speak on self compassion all night. I don't want to take up the whole time, but no, I mean, I think I just would reiterate. I mean, uh, I just cannot say enough how important it is, or how important I think it is, to find someone outside of your system, to hold up a mirror gently, kindly, compassionately, so that we can see what's so in our lives and allow us to take some agency in those things.
Awesome. And where uh, can our listeners find you?
Our
Like,
website is Brimstone Coaching Group, all one word, brimstonecoachinggroup.com. Um, we have multiple spaces on that homepage where listeners can set up a free inquiry call with either myself or my coaching partner. um, we love this work, Travis. Like, we do this work because it's been impactful for us, and we just love getting to help others walk the road of transformation too. So there's a free inquiry call there. We also understand that we are not a good fit for everyone. That there's no coach in the world that is a good fit for every single person. So if somebody's interested, if a listener is interested in giving coaching a try, we would love to talk to them through that free call. We also have a podcast. We have the Brimstone Coaching Podcast on Spotify and Apple. We just kind of generally talk high level about these conversations. We really just want this to be a place where listeners can get to know myself and Chris, my coaching partner.
awesome. Well, Kurt, I admire you for the work you're doing and your willingness to go out there and help people through their challenging times. And oh, looks like you were going to say something. Well, I
I
don't want to
was
cut you off.
you caught my inhale. I was about ready to cut you off. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me. I super appreciate the time to come on here and talk with you a little bit. And thanks for letting me ask you questions on your podcast.
Hey, anytime, anytime. I think it's good to keep the conversation going. Like I don't ever want it to be one way street on here. So, um, thanks to all of our listeners. Thanks for joining us today. And find uh, tongue tied, of course. Um, you can find us on Instagram at Overcome Pod. Listen to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, wherever you can find podcasts is probably there. The best thing you can do for us right now is share our content, follow us, subscribe, do any of that stuff. And thanks again for listening. Until next time.